I don't know where to start with this, and I'm kind of like 50-50, 50-20, 60-40. I don't know yet. I'm very torn about this movie. Like, I wanted to like it. I wanted to love it because of my love for Marvel, obviously. My love for comic books, obviously. And I wanted to enjoy this movie. But if 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, and of course if Rotten Tomatoes says anything, everybody's like, oh, it's gonna be bad, it's gonna be terrible, Johnny, and it's not worth a movie. Yes, but as a comic book fan, it was great to see. It was great to endure, I guess you could say, like a really bad comic issue. We'll get into it. Hey guys, welcome to our channel, and we want to thank Neezy for doing the initial review for Morbius, and it's Uncle Charlie, and I'm doing the spoiler review for Morbius, and that's a little harder than we want to think. Like we said, it was hard to endure, it's hard to enjoy. It was basically a very long 30 Seconds to Mars music video featuring The Crown. That's all it was. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So, the movie, it had potential. It has a lot of potential to be something, right? As a comic book fan, I was like, cool, I want to enjoy this movie. It's great to see more comic book characters being recognized, like Moon Knight. You have a lot more characters, Carnage, Venom, everything else from the main Avengers, which I've always liked, but I've also liked to see other characters come to life. But this was 2 years too late, man. This was, it had a lot of good potential. A lot of the jokes were kind of monotone because I'm not a Jared Leto fan. Like, he really didn't deliver any emotion in this. He was just very, monotone the whole time, which typical Jared Leto would ruin a movie. And so, a lot of the jokes too just kind of flatlined, and the plot points, bro. The plot points were just like plot point. Like, let's take this, let's take that, let's take this, let's take that, and not go anywhere with it. Like, come on, how you gonna do that, bro? Like, how you gonna do a man like that? And okay, for instance, right? You start from the first scene, and he's there on Island of the Lost, Skull Island, and I'm expecting Samuel L. Jackson, Tom Hiddleston, even Chaka from Land of the Lost. You remember that one with Will Ferrell? Yeah, we all remember that one too. So I was expecting those guys to show up, and he comes out here, he's with his canes, and the dude's like, you need a doctor? He's like, I am the doctor. Oh, whoop-de-doo. And so he's got this machine that he cuts his hands, and he's like, if you're going to run, this is the time to do it. Puts his hand in the machine, the bats come out, Batman's emo cousin shows up, he has now entered the chat, and it does nothing for the movie. It doesn't explain what the machine does, it doesn't explain if he's going to harness their DNA, or if he's harnessing something, or if that machine, because comic books create some kind of vibrational pattern to fuse him in a bat. You don't see that. You don't explain that. You don't hear any of that. And it's just kind of that, and then boom, we're back in Venice 25 years later, where he meets Lucian, and he's in this home for, terminally ill kids, and the actor that plays Nicholas, who has not aged at all in the movie, like, come on, bro. If you're going to make a man look immortal, at least age him a little bit. Like, come on. Like, he did not age from 25 years ago to when we see him again. Like, I guess you want to say 2022? It didn't really give a time frame, but still. He meets Lucian, his best friend. He's like, oh, you're Milo, and here's my little origami. And they make Michael Morbius, to be like some kind of super brainchild. And he, Lucian's on this machine, and he falls and dies, or almost dies because the machine gives out. It blew a fuse. He took a ballpoint pen spring, put that in as a fuse. I mean, that's kind of how a fuse works, but also kind of not how a fuse works. And I refuse to believe that. And I was like, okay, we're going to make him as a super brainchild. And then Nicholas tells him, there's a school for gifted kids like you in New York that we can send you. You have a gift, Michael. So my nerd brain was like, oh, it's the X-Men. We're going to get the X-Men. But then I realized, wait, we're trying to make Morbius a mutant? Like, he hasn't even gotten his powers yet. He's just super smart and really, really weird. And so that kind of goes on, and he's like, all right, well, what's gonna happen to Milo? And you see that, Nicholas is like, I'm gonna take care of Milo. Goes off a couple years later. Michael Morbius is getting a Nobel Peace Prize for artificial blood. It's blue blood that he makes, and it turns out Milo is a rich dude, of course, and he ends up funding all of this stuff. And again, we're gonna go back to the Skull Island. Had nothing to do with this, because that could have been a better excuse of how he gets his powers. No, he slices and dices a bat. And he's learning about the bats, and he was like, all right, now we need trial subjects and stuff like that, right? So he goes and tells Milo, I need some money, because, he's the sugar daddy in the relationship. And the jokes were very flatlined, and, it was hard to really enjoy, because as soon as he becomes a vampire, he's kind of like, oh, now I have all these, powers and stuff like that. Of course, he stands up, and you see the physique. Every Spider-Man movie we've seen, every superhero origin, it's like some kind of dude who's like small, wimpy, and then he becomes like hefty, and it's like, what's going on here? And he's like, oh yeah, look at me. Like, bro, it took 29 years of bad decisions to look this good, so come at me. But, he's like, oh, I can do all these senses, and he's doing his human trials, which, I get it. You're testing out your powers. But some of it was just kind of like redundant, like when he steps into the bats and he was like, they welcomed me like a brother. Like, that's kind of unnecessary. Like, we understand that you're formed with the bats, but I digress. The whole movie was, like I said, skipping plot points to plot points to plot points, and when they find out that Morbius was the one to kill the guys in the tanker in the ship that he does the human trials with, which obviously on himself, then they're like, oh, we're gonna put you in prison, and then immediately he's in prison. Like, it looks like he's already been sentenced and he's already in the orange jumpsuit. Then Milo comes in and he's like, oh, don't worry, brother, I've got you. And he gives him blood but leaves his cane, and he's like, Milo, you found my thing, Milo. And then he goes off and then becomes the villain arc. So Milo's a vampire. Great. There's two vampires, which is very redundant and didn't need any of it. And the movie really didn't go anywhere. Like, it went from that to, Milo going on his little villain spree, killing people, and then he fights Morbius, and it was just like, bro, we're missing a whole lot of subpoints. Like, there's a part in the fight, right? The final fight where, obviously Milo's kicking ass because, not that he's been a vampire longer, but just because he's, faster, stronger, better. Like, he's got that villain mindset, so he's ready to kill. And Morbius gets all these hordes of bats, and he literally takes the bats and he goes, and he makes a Kamehameha and hits him with the bats. I'm like, really? Because that's the thing we're gonna do. And not to mention the lack of thereof Easter eggs, like part when he takes on the bad guys and he's like, who are you? And he was like, I am Venom. But in the trailer he goes, I'm just kidding, it's Dr. Michael Morbius. They took that out. And then when he first became the vampire and things were happening with the ship tanker, and they were like, oh, have you heard anything about this? Like, I mean, there's 8 dead, and one of the detectives was like, oh, just that thing in San Francisco. So, that could be Venom. So, okay, so we're in the Venom universe. But then again, is that really... We're going to call that the Sonyverse. We're in the Venom Sonyverse, right? And so it really doesn't do anything with the story just to say, oh, yeah, Venom's in San Francisco doing his thing. And, again, could this be Venom 1 or Venom 2? Don't know. But then, you also have where, when Morbius is in the jail and he's being interrogated, right? He's sitting there with his hands all tied up, and he was like, I'm getting hungry. You wouldn't like me when I'm hungry. Okay, Hulk, thanks. Because that's scary. And then the dude, I will say I like that one of the detectives comes and brings holy water. And, I'm Catholic. So I thought that was funny. And he goes, yeah, it's triple blessed. So I was like, okay, because that's going to help you, dude. Like, come on. It's a vampire. You need a lot more than that. So, overall, Michael has his fight with Milo, and he defeats Milo. He kills him using rat poison that was like, he explains how it's terminal to humans, deadly to bats, and this and that. So he's basically going to poison him. And then his girlfriend, Martine, the whole time, has just kind of been like on the side, like, go Michael, yay! Girl, what are you doing for this story? You have nothing to do other than just help him get human trials and stuff like that. Like, she could have been the first half of the film and then we never see her again. Perfect. But, you know, Milo has her as a, you know, your typical villain scheme. I need you to call for him. And she's like, Michael, help me, help me. And then he ends up killing her. And then Morbius gets there and then he's kissing her. It's like, oh, they were a couple. They were trying to be a couple. Cool. You know? And then she bites his lip. And then she dies. And he's like, no. So he eats her. Gets powers. Or like, you know, he drinks the red blood. Because he takes the red blood, you know, red pill versus blue pill. And when all, you know, everything's said and done, right, the fight's over, Michael's jumping out of the sewer that they're fighting of, and the cops are all standing there, the bats come up like freaking Batman, and he's flying away, and then it, like, he's doing this thing, the movie's, like, telling you, like, yeah, our heroes won, or whatever, and then it focuses on his face, right, but then you see the girl, and she, like, wakes up with red eyes, it's like, oh, great, she's gotta be a vampire, too. Can we get Blade yet? Can we please get Blade to come in and just wipe this movie away? Because, like I said, I wanted to like it. I wanted so hard to like it. And I'm torn because as a comic book fan, the references, the little... it's Morbius. Cool. It's like 20% of me was like, alright. And then the other... I didn't like this. You know? Then we go into the post-credit scenes. Who, again, very misplaced. This is 2 years too late because you see the ripple effect from No Way Home, right? And then all of a sudden, Adrian Toomes enters the chat. And he was like, I don't know how I got here. Michael Keaton's being Michael Keaton. And ends up, like, getting out. And it was real quick, you know. I mean, the post-credit scene felt more like a trailer. And it was just like, you know, No Way Home. And then Adrian Toomes. And then, you know, they're like, oh, somehow Adrian Toomes is just magically reappeared. And he's going to be immediately released because I guess he's good in this universe. And so it really doesn't explain how that's going to fit into this. Right? Then we go into the credits. And then we get another post-credit scene where Morbius is driving and he meets Vulture out in some kind of field and he's got his suit, which kind of looked a little bit different from the one in No Way Home. But it was, I mean, I've always liked that suit, so I thought it was like, oh, okay, cool. And he was like, hey, Doc, I've been thinking about you. Thanks for meeting me. And he kind of explains how something's different here, but it all has to do with Spider-Man. And then Morbius is like, interesting. It's like, okay, so how do you know about Spider-Man? Like, has Morbius gone up against Spider-Man? Again, nothing to do with anything. And if this was kind of just like a one-and-done movie, I think that should be perfect, and that's it. We do not need a Morbius 2. We do not need anything else, because the Spider-Man universes, as we know, is kind of already done and over with. We already had our No Way Home. Again, 2 years too late. It was extraneous. Very extraneous to watch. I'm like, oh, dude. So, all in all, if you want to waste your money and watch it, that's up to you. If you want to wait 3 months, it's probably going to be on Amazon by then. Even better. I hope whoever decided to make the Sonyverse just gives all the rights to Disney, because, you know. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. It's very sporadic, like I said. It was very hard to really get the nitty-gritty of it all, and it was like, But I really enjoyed this 30 Seconds to Mars music video. It was really long, though. But, alright guys, so let me know in the chat, you know, your comments and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure everybody has something to say, because I'm going to forget a lot, because there was a lot to take in on that movie. But give me your thoughts. Let's chat. Or even talk on, you know, talk on Neezy's video, whatever you think. If you liked Morbius, not, I mean, that's cool. That's your choice. I mean, we all have our opinions. These are ours. And, you know, hope to see you guys again. As always, like and subscribe.